Welcome to Under the Covers. I am your host, Siren, and tonight I am your guide through the depths of the darkness. Pour yourself a drink, do some gardening, and curl up under the covers as we surrender into the abyss. Why did it have to be me who found the bodies? I wasn't supposed to have anything to do with it. Really, I mean it. I ain't a detective. I wasn't looking for answers to keep to myself all my life. I just wish I could have been left alone in turn. Even when the bodies started to go missing, I kept my head down. Grim stuff for sure, but what was I supposed to do? I guess it's old-fashioned now, maybe a cliche, but I'm a small-town guy. I gotta go at a slower pace than most folks. I've never lived anywhere other than my hometown, and I've never regretted. At least I didn't before. Sure, I knew Dr. Geller. We grew up just a couple of streets apart, even if we were on the other side of the tracks, so to speak. He was younger than me, but we was in the same classes. Me held back a year, him pushing forward. They kept pushing him forward. He was out of state and going to college by the time he was 16. Duke, I think it was? Yeah, Duke. He became the dean of surgery there. I saw him on Facebook once. He came back before. Makes sense he'd be a great surgeon. He was a smart guy and didn't let blood bother him. I remember when Ernie Masters caught him right across the face with the lunch tray. There was blood all across the ground, but he didn't seem troubled by it. You know, I think that was the only time we really talked as boys. After I pulled Masters off of him and took him to the nurse's office. Maybe it's 'cause of that. Maybe I helped him out that once that nothing happened to me. Outside of Facebook, I never heard anything else from him for going on 20 years. I got my carpentry apprentice and worked in Mr. Henderson's workshop in town for a couple years. Of course, it went out of business when an IKEA opened 25 miles down the highway. I kind of scrambled around looking for work, and I just happened to get the custodian job at my old school. Can't say it's what I had in mind for myself, cleaning up kids' trash in the boys' bathroom and like a pile of shit. Still, I'm the only custodian they ever had who had carpentry training. The principal got me a cake when I repaired the basketball court floor. Saved the school an easy $3,000. So it ain't bad, really. I know the grounds better than anyone, and I've been here longer than almost anyone else. Seen 3 principals move along. 4 now, I guess. Long as I'd been there, though, never thought I'd see Dr. Geller come back. Remember I said I'm a small-town guy? Well, even before he was gone, Bill was the only big city. Feels weird calling him Bill, considering what I seen him do. Guess it ain't right for me to call him doctor either. I didn't know it at first when he came back that he wasn't a doctor anymore. No one knew what he had done to get his license taken away. There were rumors, of course, but I thought I had too much sense to listen to those. People said something about experiments, blood taken from the medical students or something. We never talked about it when he came back. Never talked at all. I can't even say whether he knew it was me who helped him or with Ernie Masters, even when he became my colleague. Quite a change from going to the dean of surgery to local biology teacher, going all across the country back to his hometown. But I don't think that's any great mystery. Least weird thing about the story, if you ask me. It weren't no secret that his wife had died. Cancer, of course. So now we're just him and Nina. Poor Nina. She was a real nice girl, always cleaned up after herself. Even apologized when I had to clean up the mess her friends had left behind in the classroom and help me tidy it up. See, it's kids like her that make me have a little hope. I see the worst part of kids doing what I do. Now, I seen the worst parts of fathers, too. I was just as broken up as everyone else when I heard the news in the staff room. The poor Nina had been hit by a car. Going trick-or-treating, I guess. Whatever high school juniors do on Halloween night. Of course, they caught the guy that did it. Drunk driving bastard. I saw what it did to Dr. Geller, though. Just broke him apart. He was gone for months. Never saw him on the street or at the store. Some thought he might have left town completely. I know he did for a while, but he came back eventually. Even went back to teaching. But everyone knew he weren't the same. He was snappish, cruel with the teachers and students alike. Made Henry from art cry once. Of course, that would have gotten him let go, but what was the principal supposed to do? The man had lost his wife and daughter. How could he kick him out of his job, too? Principal Harper quit recently, after it all happened. I seen him at the bar. He's there most nights now. We both are. I mean, how was he supposed to know? I'm the one who should have known. So yeah, the bodies. I guess the first one was most shocking. Exhumation. I didn't know the word before. Now it's a part of the local vernacular. As common a saying as any. Wilbur Hutchins, an old man, dead a couple months, was dug up from the local cemetery, and his body was missing. Cops were everywhere, of course. Got a lot of attention across the state. We get a lot more in both time. National press, journalists swarming through the graveyards, keeping a closer watch on the town than the cops and the sheriff's department combined. The podcasters were the worst, though. The true crime leeches and the paranormal investigators. I have a little sympathy for them, at least. It's all bunk what they say, all that yapping about vampires, but at least they're barking up the right tree. Henry Ortega was next, not a local boy, a young man, dug up from the nearest military graveyard. Veteran, dead from an oxy-OD and not 2 weeks in the ground. From there, it only got worse. Cops hadn't even taken the police tape down from the cemetery when the next grave robbing happened. It was Nina. Of course, the town and the school were abuzz, horrified, afraid, and Dr. Geller was right in the midst of it all. He looked as stern and hard as a statue. He didn't take time off. He was just meaner than ever. Never said anything as to me, though. And attention was only on him for so long because the spree only went on from there. Just a week after Nina's taken, bodies were going missing across the country, just days apart, always just after burial. Cemeteries everywhere had police standing guard, vigilantes too, bereaved family members standing vigil, armed with guns and baseball bats. That poor guy, Chris Marsh, got killed by a jumpy family, just for walking his dog at night by the graveyard. Still, the bodies were going missing, 3 of them, and the trend was obvious. All young women like Nina, 17 to 20. There was awful speculation as to why, like you'd expect. God, how I wish I didn't know the real reason, worse than I could ever let myself imagine. I guess I can't blame those families or the police. They were trying to protect the dead. But surely they had to know they were forcing his hand, that he'd had to make new, unguarded bodies. They say that Clara's death was a suicide. She was Nina's friend, and all this misery was around her. Nothing strange about it. But I know it wasn't true. She was killed, her body taken from the morgue before they could find out what got her. And Becky, poor Becky, another student from my school, attacked by coyotes? I saw the state of her. No dogs could do that. You know why she wasn't taken? Why she stayed in the ground? Because there wasn't nothing left of her to take. I never wanted to be found and found out in the truth. There was a detective and feds from all across the state in town. I should have been them who went to the gym that night. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be me that caught him. It's like all the clues weren't there, and I was the one who had the best chance to spot him. There was the car parked in the school parking lot, even after I locked the school door behind me. Who would be parking in the school parking lot so late at night? Worst of all was the key. Yeah, I lost the key to the basement. I knew it was gone months before, and I didn't tell anybody because I kept losing things. I didn't want to get another earful from the principal. And it's not like there was anything that anyone wanted. Ancient year books and long abandoned lost property. It was from there I heard the scream. I was cleaning the basketball court again, later than I normally did, and I almost missed it. A scream. Girl scream. I was sure I'd imagined it, but I still had to stop and listen. I probably stood there for a full minute of silence, straining my ears. But when I heard it again, I knew there was no mistaking it. A girl, in pain, under my feet. I started calling to her, looking for a way to find her. I opened the old sports cupboard. All the gear and the gym mats had been pushed aside, revealing the old trap door I hadn't used in years. It was locked, like it was supposed to be. But even after what I heard, that almost convinced me that I just hadn't had enough caffeine. But then I heard the sound of the saw, the sound I know so well, and then the shriek again. I've got a crowbar in my office only for emergencies, but I wasn't going to go running for it. I got the claw hammer in my toolkit, jammed the hook under the edge of the door, and wrenched it open. The stench was just awful. Blood and shit covered up by that awful sterile hospital smell. There was lights on down there, deep in the bowels of the basement, past all the crowded shelves. I went by that light, stumbling and scrambling in the dark, yet with my hammer in my hand. When I heard the scream again, I swear I almost shit myself. It wasn't just louder, it was unearthly. The sort of scream which should rip a throat apart, more wildcat than human. And then there was the sound of the saw again. Like an idiot, I hurried forward, thinking I could help. I rushed headlong in. And I haven't been able to forget it since. It just won't quit. It's right there. I kept looking back and behind myself as though a scene can follow you around wherever you go. I don't think I'll get it out of him ever. Except one way, I guess. It was Dr. Gaylor, dressed up as the surgeon he used to be. Rubber gloves and red worn all the way up to his elbows. He had 2 gurneys and brought lamps, an improvised surgical theater with a tray of tools meant for working on wood and dissecting frogs. There on one table was Clara Prescott, open from throat to navel, ribs split open, her pale blood drained awful open to the air like they were the back of the butcher's. Her left arm was sliced off above the elbow. That would have been so awful to see a girl killed and hacked to bits. But the real awfulness, the thing that's had me in the bar almost every night, was on the other gurney. Nina. She was gray with rot, except where other girls' pale skin had been grafted on her. She was a hideous mess, stitched together like a doll. A massive Y-shaped scar across her front, and she was skeleton thin. Her flesh like saran wrap above her bones. Her black hair had fallen out in huge patches, and her skull was clear to see. Her eyes were open and staring, one brown, one piercing blue. Dr. Geller just stared at me, spinning saw in one hand, Chloe's severed arm in the other, expression that was partly hidden by his surgical mask. But I could see the shock in his eyes, and I think maybe shame too. But insanity as well. That I know. I know it better than ever now. Because Nina was moving, twisting, bucking against the restraints that had her tied to the gurney. Her mouth and those snapping brown teeth worked against the air, but she stopped when she saw me, going as silent and still as her father. I know I heard her say it. I'm telling you, I know for a fact. The same voice she'd had before, but dragged a mile over the sand and glass. She said my name, like she was surprised to run into me at a store. I staggered back, smashed clean into the shelf, and knocked the whole thing down. I fell with it, landing on old boxes. I wasn't making any sense then, babbling in between uncontrollable breaths. Dr. Gaylor dropped the saw and went to Nina's restraints. I heard him shouting. He was telling her to get me, stop me, like he was letting her loose attack dog. I scrambled away, barely able to find my footing and to run. I crashed through the basement, running into shelves and stacked up boxes, getting dust in my eyes, tears pouring down my face. I felt the hand go around my ankle and I shrieked as I went down. I was spasming and twitching on the ground as cold hands pawed at me. I could feel its long nails pushing through my clothes. I kicked and I kicked and I kicked again. Then it let me go. I sobbed with relief as I crawled away through the dust, found my feet, and dashed to the stairs. My lungs were on fire as I got to the top of the stairs and fell to my knees in the sports closet. I slammed the door shut behind me and dragged the basketball cage over so no one could get out. It didn't stick around in the school then. I got my car and sped down the road. I only called the police when I was half a mile away. Of course, everyone knows what they found in the basement when the police arrived. Dr. Geller and Nina's corpses, along with the other bodies. Both the Gellers' throats slashed. Everyone knows about Dr. Frankenstein, Dr. Death, whatever other nickname they could call him. Everyone knows that he killed himself after his insane project was found. The bereaved father who stole the bodies of young women to harvest in order to rebuild his dead daughter. I hate those nicknames. But there's one name I saw online afterwards that stuck with me. An old word for grave robbers. Resurrectionist. I know that he brought Nina back to life. He found some way. Maybe by harvesting the parts from the other girls. Maybe. The school's been shut down, of course. Just about everyone, all the teachers, everyone who ought to known, has left town too. Ashamed of what they'd missed. Chased away by the rumors about their involvement. There was rumors about me, too. Why didn't I notice that the key was missing? Surely I should have known what was going on. That didn't trouble me. It's just words. Something bothers me, though. I know I said I ain't a detective, that I never ought to be involved, but I keep thinking about the hand that was around my ankle and knocked me down. I looked at all the reports of what happened. And they all say that Nina was found still strapped to her gurney. So it couldn't have been her that got to me. See, I have a thought about it some. And I don't think that Bill needed to harvest all those girls. Maybe the first or even the second. She'd been in the ground for a long time, just like Wilbur Hutchins. Dr. Geller dug up 2 men, then dug up only girls around his daughter's age. I think that Dr. Geller couldn't bring back Wilbur Hutchins. He was too rotten. He needed someone fresher. And I'm not the only one to wonder how a middle-aged biology school teacher could dig up half a dozen bodies in the night without being caught. How could he break into the county coroner's office, smashing cameras and getting away with a body over his shoulder? And I know it weren't coyotes that killed Becky. See, I know something got me by the ankle. And I know that since the night I've been able to find my keys anywhere. They found so many bodies in that basement. Dr. Geller's amongst them. But no one has ever found Henry Ortega. And the police arrived. The trap door was open. It would have taken someone or something with freakish strength to lift it open. I wonder what he'll do. Restored to his own life. Free of the master who clawed him back down by the end after he'd cut his own daughter's throat. Is he just as foul and hideous as Nina? Did Dr. Geller get him before the rot set in? Before the flies could lay their eggs in him? Is he a shambling ruin in the dark? A ghoul, hungry for flesh? Or is he like that of any other person on the street? A pale, cold-skinned man with no identity and no place. I only hope to God that I never find out, and that he never tries to return my keys.